You're listening to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
So what happens when you've planned a great event for the summer and everything changes because, well, there's a global pandemic? You pivot and you figure out the next best thing, how to go about that. And sometimes there are unique and new opportunities that come out of that as well. So we have some friends who were planning to shadow missionaries this summer with maybe the hopes of being a missionary maybe in the future. So they're going to join us today and share how that changed, how those plans changed for them. And joining us, as always, when we're talking about missionaries and short-term trips, we have Ann Gonzalez from the Office of International Mission. Ann, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
And you brought along with you Sam Wegner. Hey, Sam.
Hello.
And Hayden Rensner. Hayden, welcome back to the Coffee Hour.
Thank you.
So let's start with Sam. Sam, what were your plans this year to learn more about being a missionary?
I was planning on shadowing Ben Helge in Czech Republic and Kim Bueltmann in Germany for a week each. So it would have been 2 weeks hanging out with them, following in their footsteps and seeing what life is like for them serving in Europe.
And so why are you interested in shadowing these missionaries?
So there's a couple of different factors going on. I've become really interested in missions through the Beautiful Feet Mission Conference run through the Concordia system. And through that, and then this spring, I was also studying abroad at Westfield House in England. So being there and being exposed to our partner church body in England, I really wanted the experience to see what their life was like internationally.
Hayden, what about you? What were your plans going to be this summer with the missionaries?
I was supposed to shadow Sarah Kanoy in Tanzania, and then also the Young family in Kenya, and also participate in another MMT. And so those were my plans for this summer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. I think we had you on once before to talk about your experiences with the MMT. So what was interesting about shadowing these missionaries, and what were you looking forward to?
Well, I've been to Sierra Leone twice for separate MMTs, and so I really love Africa and love the experience that I've been able to have in that region. And so I was really looking forward to being able to observe missionaries from the Africa region and their day-to-day life and kind of be there for longer so that I could get a better glimpse of what missionary life is really like apart from short-term trips. So...
Absolutely. And I keep saying MMT, but for our listeners who don't know what that means, can you tell us a little bit about what an MMT is and what you actually get to do?
Yeah, so MMT is a Mercy Medical Trip, and so they take place in areas of the region that are underserved and don't have access to medical care. And so you set up a 5-day clinic where people from all the surrounding villages can come and get that medical care. And so I have been twice to Sierra Leone on an MMT, and both times I was able to serve in the vitals signs because I'm not a medical person and don't know anything really. And so I was able to do vital signs and serve in that capacity.
So Hayden, when you found out that travel probably wouldn't be happening this year, where did you go with that next? What was the next step?
Well, when I found out about it, it was very sad. I think a lot happened that one time because about the time that I found that out, I also found out that my university was closing. And so it was just like a lot happening. But then pretty much right away, Anne had contacted me and was starting to talk to me about maybe doing some Zoom meetings and still being able to talk to missionaries this summer. And so that was very helpful, and it was very nice to have that right away to look forward to as a kind of replacement.
How about for you, Sam, when you first found out that travel probably wouldn't be happening this spring or this summer, what happened next?
Yeah, it was a very similar experience as Hayden has talked about, but obviously very sad that I wouldn't have that experience to see what their life is like in that experience. But I was very excited as Anne started talking about the opportunity to shadow different missionaries in regions throughout the world. So it's been a really unique opportunity to still talk to people and still learn a little bit more about life as a missionary even in a very unconventional way.
So tell us more about that. Have you already started visiting with missionaries on Zoom?
Yes. So this past week, we wrapped up our last meeting. We had a total of, I think it was 5 meetings, maybe it's more than that, but we got to meet with every different region that has missionaries throughout the world. So Latin America, Africa, Asia, Europe. And then we also got to talk to people with recruitment with the Office of International Mission to see what that process looks like. It was just really, really neat to gain that perspective of what different areas are doing and what day-to-day life looks like around the world for our missionaries.
What were you able to learn from these conversations, Sam, that was interesting, or that really gave you a different look at what missionary life could be like?
Yeah, I guess a lot of it is like it is somewhat a normal day-to-day life, but it also looks very different. So sometimes I think it's really cool talking to people in Latin America with like they're doing mercy work and going to people's houses and visiting with them, and it's just a very different concept than what I might have imagined life to look like. But it's also just a really cool, beautiful thing that happens in the day-to-day, just meeting people and spreading the gospel through that.
Hayden, what were some of the things that stood out to you in these conversations with different missionaries around the world?
Kind of going off what Sam said, it was very interesting to be able to hear from each region and hear about the different work that is going on there. And it stood out to me, it was very helpful and interesting to be able to hear from the different missionaries and their own personal perspectives. So there were some missionaries that started short term, some that went career right away, some that had families, some that were single. And so it was really helpful being able to hear those different perspectives and kind of hear from people who are in the same life situation as you maybe, and people who aren't, and how they all adjusted and were led to missionary life.
And tell us about when you first started, learning that travel probably wasn't going to happen this year. How is that impacting your work with short-term teams and training and engagement for this year? Obviously, this is certainly one of those ways, using Zoom meetings. How's that impacting your work?
Sure. So about mid-March, we had to shut down all of the everything that we were doing with volunteers internationally. We had to call and make lots of cancellation calls, and so at this point, until things change with what the State Department's recommendations are, we can't even recruit or begin to think about placing even for the future. So that part of our usual work is just really on hold. And so into that came this opportunity to say, okay, well, we can't do things the way that we have been doing them, and yet Jesus is still the Lord of the church, and we still have resources, and how can we do things differently? And the one difference between Sam and Hayden's experiences were that I had to call Hayden and tell her, I'm very sorry, your service for this summer is off. Sam, on the other hand, emailed me and said, well, the university is recalling us early, so I won't be in Europe in May anymore, so I won't be able to do the shadow missionary.
What are some of the ways that you're able to move forward, even without being able to place anyone? That certainly puts a damper on things. But some of the opportunities that have come up because of this space that you now have to work with. What are some of the opportunities that you're able to move forward with in a very different way than you were probably expecting to move forward with right now?
So, obviously, this project was not on our radar. But Sam and Hayden, and there was one other young woman who was supposed to go and shadow missionaries this year. And so then it was sort of this mental pivot of, okay, how can we still do something in this space? And while there is definitely something about being there that can never be replicated virtually, I think what they got out of this instead was sort of the broader view. They were able to interact with more missionaries in more regions, in more roles, so that they got a broader view rather than a deeper view of missionary life. So that was really exciting. Each of the Zoom calls, I had a pair of missionaries that joined us, and we tried to be intentional around, picking different people with different skill sets and backgrounds and what they do day to day. But yeah, we've also been working on developing new curriculum and things like that. We've got a different pilot project going for helping people do English conversation partners virtually over Zoom, and helping people in other countries work on their English in connection with the ongoing outreach happening in that place.
Sam, since learning has certainly changed both as university students, and now learning about being missionaries has changed, what are you thinking for the rest of the summer and this fall? Any other plans?
So I'm hoping to be able to work at a Naloma camp in northern Wisconsin, Camp Luther. We're still waiting to hear the status on our first weeks of summer programming, so I'm not entirely sure what this will look like. But hopefully that's the case. And then this fall, I'm anticipating returning on campus to Concordia, Chicago. Fingers crossed that we'll be able to meet together in person.
Hayden, how about you?
I do not have many plans for this summer now. I moved to North Dakota with my sister and brother-in-law, and so kind of calling a new state home for the next couple months. And then I'm also hoping to return to Concordia, Nebraska in the fall, and hoping and praying that we have resumed face-to-face classes.
Well, thank you both. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Hayden. And Anne, thank you for joining us, all three of you, for being our guests in the coffee hour today with this update on how things are working out for those who are learning about missionaries and those who are serving on short-term teams as well. It's been a delight to talk with you all. Sam Wegner, thanks for being our guest today.
Thank you so much.
Hayden Rensner, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And Anne Gonzalez, Office of International Mission, thanks for being our guest today.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you, Andy.
You've been listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Gulseth.
The Coffee Hour with Andy and Sarah is a production of KFUO. To support the Coffee Hour and KFUO Radio, visit KFUO.org. You can also text KFUO to 41444 or send an email to gifts@kfuo.org. And you can call us at 800-844-0524. KFUO. Christ for you, anytime, anywhere.